your advice for rain and cold weather gear, we kind of touched on this earlier, but you were going super minimalist, so you would just actually strip down when you're dealing in the cold water.
Right.
But certainly hypothermia is probably on your top 5 list of things to worry about.
Yeah, it is. I had hypothermia a lot when I was doing expeditions on a shoestring budget in my 20s, and I've never had hypothermia since then because I have better clothing. And I mean, just something as simple as merino wool, like a merino wool base layer, it really diminishes the chances that you're going to have hypothermia in summer canoeing because, I mean, it's just so effective at keeping you warm even when you're wet. But if you don't have that, and I didn't have it on any of my early expeditions, then hypothermia becomes almost inevitable in a place like Hudson Bay, where I often would paddle and it would be wet and windy. You would constantly be plagued by it. But no, I was mostly fine, and I experimented, as I said, with just doing things the old-fashioned way, which is, I'm not going to use neoprene or any sort of waterproof system. I'm literally just going to wear like ordinary summer wading shoes as if you were a kid at summer camp or going to a beach to protect my feet from sharp rocks and walk through the water and get wet because I felt like I'm moving and the movement is keeping me warm. And then as soon as I'm done, like this was when I was wading through rapids, right? Like down the side of them and stuff. I felt like it would be an asset because inevitably any of those systems you wear are quite awkward and bulky. And I was like, just being light and having these really good wading shoes that I think they were actually like kind of a hiking style will make me much more agile in terms of actually moving through here. And it did. And I was fine because as soon as I was done, I would just take them off and get back into my canoe and change back into dry clothing. And because also I was fairly confident that the temperatures wouldn't be that cold. Like if I was doing it in September or even earlier in the year, then I wouldn't have done that system. But because I knew it was like July, I wasn't overly concerned about it. I definitely wouldn't do that in September. That would be miserable. But at that time of year, I felt that option would be fine. And it seemed to work well for me. I did have an interesting revelation though about waterproof jackets and things, which is a friend of mine who's a lot older than me. He's an American who I've done a number of canoe trips with. He actually had mentioned to me that he didn't really believe full-heartedly in Gore-Tex and like the modern synthetics, that he was a bit of a skeptic and thought that nothing but an old-fashioned like sort of fisherman's rubber rain jacket was the only thing that would keep you dry in the heaviest downpours. And when he had said that to me like 5 years ago, I was like, oh no, but everyone in the outdoor industry, they're using all the flashy brands, the best brands with their high-tech modern cutting edge waterproof gear. So I sort of dismissed it as sort of like an old fashioned opinion that had surely been debunked and discredited. But I discovered on this journey that no, that's absolutely correct. That I had a brand new rain jacket from a very reputable, famous outdoor company. And I found that in those heavy downpours, because I said it was like, some of the heaviest rain on record in recent memory, it soaked right through. It did nothing. And that was what I found. It was like, yeah, but this might look great in like some sort of YouTube video or advertisement when you're spraying it with a garden hose in like in a test. But it's like, if you're paddling for 15 hours a day and it's heavy rain, it's going through, it's soaking through. And I couldn't believe it. I mean, it was like, this is just garbage. How is this happening to my modern rain jacket? So I was like, maybe it's a fluke. Maybe it's just something has gone wrong here. So I actually, since I was still on the Great Lakes, I had, when I made camp, asked my wife to go to the outdoor store, buy the best rain jacket they sell in that store. I said, I don't care what the price is, buy it and mail it to me and I'll get it at my next Canada Post stop, which was in a week or two. And she did. And when I got it, I thought at first, oh, this is amazing. It's keeping me dry. But it was the same experience. I again experienced incredibly heavy rain in May in Quebec, and it soaked right through.
Was there condensation from all the paddling just overwhelming the breathability of the garment?
No, it wasn't condensation. It was cold, and it was just heavy rain was more than it could bear in the arms, especially. It would soak through in the arms. And it was just, and so I actually ended up reading, and I found that, some people who write reviews had been wise to this fact. I think they used the expression, what do they say? They have some sort of expression. They call it wetting through or something. And they said essentially any modern fabric will do this. Especially if you're using just like basically a windbreaker, right? Like the really thin, it's not insulated. There's not multiple layers. I find that if I use like a thicker jacket from any of those same companies, then it works because it has like multiple layers.
Yeah.
But any of those thin ones, if you're in heavy rain for long enough, it's going to soak through. So I was actually converted through that experience to my friend's view of things, which is that actually at the end of the day, only the old-fashioned rubber sort of raincoats is the only thing that's actually going to keep you bone dry in the heaviest of downpours. And yeah, I would be interested to see what other people's experiences are, but from the bit of research that I did, I found that, for people who actually are doing like field tests, where you're not just testing it for like an afternoon or a weekend, but you're actually going on like a multiple month-long expedition, and you're experiencing very heavy rain, eventually it's going to soak right through. And I found that with any of those products, any Gore-Tex, eventually it'll soak through. That's what I found. Has that been your experience? But you have to have you have to have real heavy rain.
Certainly on the lighter, like the single layer windbreaker, 100% yes. With I'll name drop it, even though I paid full price for it and they didn't give me a bloody discount. Thank you very much, Arc'teryx. The Arc'teryx severe weather stuff that's quite thick and quite heavy, I've not had it leak through.
No, and I haven't either. Not for the heavy stuff. Like all the heavy stuff that I've used, that does keep you dry, at least for a while. Like eventually, if you use your stuff for years, it'll start to wear through.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. And I think they've got a pretty good replacement. I can't believe I'm pimping Arc'teryx for free. I think they've got a pretty good replacement policy as well. You can say like, hey, I bought this for jacket for $600 or whatever the crazy number is 3 years ago and 4 years ago, and it's now leaking. I think they'll replace it. We'll find out soon enough if that's not correct.